Hey guys, this is Trevor with Patrick Adair Supplies, and today we're going to be going over the September sub box. Alright, so in this box we have our black ceramic ring blank, an empty vial, a vial of our green glow powder, our sangria red opal, and our rusty red pigment. Okay, so to start us off, I usually do about 3 heaping scoops of the pigment that we're using, and then fill the rest of the vial almost full with the glow powder, leaving just enough room so you can shake it around and fully mix it up. If you want a lighter or a darker color, just add more or less pigment and glow powder, whichever ratio you think looks the best for your application. After that is adequately mixed together, I'm going to do a thin layer of our thick CA to coat that base of the inlay channel. And after that is covered, I'm just taking our opal and sprinkling it over top, trying to get as much coverage as we can on that base layer. I didn't crush any of the opal up this time. I thought the size was good. If you want a smaller opal, feel free to crush it. Just use a hammer and wear eye protection. After that base layer of the inlay channel is fully covered with the opals, I'm just taking the back side of my tweezers and lightly pressing down just to make sure that the opal is in contact with that thick CA and really squeezing everything in so that inlay channel is fully covered. And once it looks like everything is good, I'm taking our glow pigment mixture and just sprinkling that all over that inlay channel and blowing off the excess. After I do that, I'm just checking for any open spots where maybe the thick CA didn't touch, so there's a little bit of metal showing through in that inlay, and just adding on a little bit more powder to cover that up. Afterwards, I'm taking our super thin CA and just doing a couple drops around the ring, just enough to change that color of the glow pigment, to saturate it. I'm trying as hard as I can not to add too much super thin. Again, just enough to change that color of the pigment. If you add too much, your inlay will just start dripping out and you'll have to redo that process. After the super thin is on, I'm doing just a quick spray of our accelerant and letting that initial layer cure. Before I continue building up the ring with super thin, I'm doing just one last check to make sure those open metal spots got covered, and there was a couple spots that I missed, so I'm just sprinkling a little bit more pigment on. I'll usually sprinkle a little bit on and try to gently blow it off. If there is no glue, it's not going to stick, so you can sprinkle a little bit on, make sure it's covered, and then add just a tiny bit of super thin to hold that in place. But once I am satisfied, I'm again just doing a couple drops to keep that pigment in place. And I'm going to set my lathe to a really slow RPM. I don't have an actual number for that RPM, I just put it on its lowest setting so it's barely spinning, just to keep it so the glue is constantly going around that inlay channel, just so it doesn't pool up in one spot and so it gets good coverage all the way around. And we're going to keep building up the inlay channel with our super thin CA until it gets to the top of that inlay channel. You don't necessarily have to build it up all the way to the top. I like to, since you're going to be building it up eventually with that super thin anyway, to keep that inlay channel full. I like doing it now just to save a little time. After you Dremel, if it's not fully built up, you can catch a lot of dust in the low spots, and if you don't catch it, sometimes you can accidentally leave those dirty spots in, and it's a little bit harder to clean. After that inlay channel is fully built up and completely cured, I'm going to take my rotary tool and just sand that inlay channel flush with the rest of the ring. And I'm going to take just our little section of 220 sandpaper and do a quick little wet sand to sand away any of those harsh sanding lines or reveal any holes that may have been created when we were building up that inlay channel. After that wet sand, I'm just going to dry the ring off and do another quick once over on the ring to make sure that all the imperfections are gone. And then I'm going to do another 2 to 3 layers of our super thin just to make sure that it is fully covered and that all of the holes or scratches that we may have had are filled up. Just as a side note, when I do build up the super thin, I try to do around 3 drops at a time and then cure, and once it's cured, I do another 3 drops until it's to the level that I want. I try to do the 3 drops at a time just to avoid any bubbles forming in the CA or any just weird artifacts. Sometimes if it cures too quickly or if there's too much glue, you can get weird lines or bubbles in that CA, and while it's not the end of the world, it's kind of a pain to clean those up later. So I just like to take my time and slowly build it up so that we don't have to worry about any of those issues when they may come up. But after those last layers of super thin are on there and cured, I'm going to start the finishing process by doing another wet sand with that 220 grit. I'm sanding away most of the excess super thin with this. Once I'm almost down to that inlay channel level, I usually switch to the 500 grit so as to not take too much of that material away. And then after the 500 grit, I switch to 1000 grit, wet sanding the whole way. And then after the 1000 grit, I like to use our step 1 polishing paste just to clean up any of those really small, fine lines that may have been created from sanding. I think it's a nice, easy way to finish up the ring and get a really nice shine on it. If you would like to, I know some people will wet sand all the way up to like 12,000 credits sometimes if they want. It's all up to you, your personal preference. The more you sand with the higher grits, the more likely you are to get a good shine. But I think that the 220, 500, 1000, and then that step 1 polishing paste gives you a nice finish on that ring. And then once that's over, you should be left with a really nice surface on the ring. I'm happy with this ring and how it turned out. I think the colors look really nice together. So enjoy the process and enjoy your finished ring. Thanks guys, we'll see you on the next one.